What's up, Simply the West Nation? As Bill O'Reilly once said, we'll do it live! We are here in the same room, in the same state, that being the land of 10,000 lakes. It is Thanksgiving week. Blake is in town to visit his in-laws. I made it over to the in-laws' palatial estate that the Schmitz family
Hotel Schmitz.
The Hotel Schmitz, and a 5-star resort it is. So it is awesome to be in the same room with you and do this.
Yeah, it's great. We got some Northeast. This was served at my wedding, and I will bring some back for my uncles that ask for it every time we go up to Minnesota. So highly recommend the Grain Belt Brewing Company. Northeast is a fine beer. It's kind of like an iced tea. That's what I like to describe it.
It's an easy sipper, American amber
It is beer.
lager. It's beer. It's a great beer. Very balanced. One of the most balanced, I guess you'd put it in the cheap beer genre, but it's very good. You can drink it.
Inexpensive. Cheap makes it sound like it's not good.
Makes it sound cheap, yeah. Brewed in New Ulm, Minnesota, which is an awesome little town in the southwest portion of
And if you're
the
from
Shells Brewery. So
And if you're from southern Minnesota, you say New Ulm instead of Ulm.
it's a German town.
Yeah.
So
They have a nice little glockenspiel. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's pretty awesome.
in the town square, yes, of course. Well, we have. If there was one week where we were going to be able to do this together in person, this has to be it. Last week of the regular season for
Rivalry
college football
week.
season, rivalry week, some trophies, or in at least one case, an old oaken bucket being given out. And it's a big one. You know, you've got Minnesota and Wisconsin battling, not just for the axe, which if you're here in the land of 10,000 lakes or from Minnesota or have any semblance of familiarity with that rivalry, you know how heated it is no matter what year it is. But there's a berth in the Big Ten Championship on the line in that one. Can't wait for that Saturday. College game day is going to be here. We're going to try to make it down for that and at least kind of see what there is to see. And we'll try and do a Bill O'Reilly-esque live report from down there. But before that, on Friday, basically the Big Ten Championship for Nebraska and Iowa down in Lincoln. A disappointing season, probably for both teams to varying levels. But that game means a lot. Iowa with the chance to get to a pretty solid bowl game with the year they've had, get a 9-win season, despite some struggles along the way. And Nebraska playing to extended season and really, more than that, figure out what the trajectory of the program under Scott Frost is going to be moving forward. And we'll get into that a little bit more. You got the Land of Lincoln Trophy, Illinois playing against Northwestern. I'm going to put it out there right now. I don't think Northwestern's going to win, but I think that's going to be a very tight game because this is totally one of those situations where Northwestern's had a terrible season and they're going to come in to Illinois and last game of the year, rivalry game, they're going to do the sneaky, ugly it up Northwestern thing and at least keep that one very close.
And make Illinois look like they have for the last
Right.
5 years.
Exactly. And then you've got Purdue, Indiana playing again for the old Oaken Bucket, which just in terms of nomenclature is my favorite trophy rivalry game of any in the country. Just the quaint nostalgia that comes with the old Oaken Bucket.
You think it was their lucky bucket?
Maybe that's what Nebraska and Iowa should be sipping out of the Heroes Game trophy if the Huskers.
Well, if anybody knows, if nobody knows what the lucky bucket is, there's a brewing company in Omaha. But where they get that name from is like you had your water bucket that you had to go get your stuff. You get your water from. You get your milk bucket to bring your milk back home. Well, when you needed your beer, you had your lucky bucket.
And there you go. I'm sure there's all kinds of good sustenance that could come from the old Oaken Bucket. So let's get into it, man. Minnesota, Wisconsin. Kind of seems like these two have been on a collision course for a while now. We came into this year feeling very high on Wisconsin, thought Minnesota had a chance to be competitive. I don't know that a whole lot of people outside of the four walls down at Stadium Village and Dinkytown anticipated the season that Minnesota's had. I know Wisconsin fans definitely didn't. So it's going to be a real chance for Minnesota, again, to prove, not that they're for real. They've already proven that. This is a legit team. But it's a rivalry game. It's a fun one. They won the Axe last year. My favorite anecdote about this rivalry today is the fact that there is a spot in Wisconsin's trophy case where the axe was for 15 years, a decade and a half. Minnesota won and finally reclaimed that last year. And that they kept that spot in the trophy case empty on purpose, and the players literally walk by it every day. That was kind of their microcosm for, gosh, last year really didn't go the way that we wanted it to. We're pissed off. We're coming back. We're out for blood. We've really seen that all season, save for that hiccup against Illinois and then coming up against an Ohio State team that's just otherworldly like we've talked about. So that's what Minnesota's up against, and I think it's going to be a really good matchup here in the Twin Cities this weekend.
Well, and I know our friends that we went to college with, they're from Wisconsin. Another thing that kind of adds
the pride of Chippewa Falls.
Yes, yeah, what was I can't. They were the Mavericks, if I remember right. And,
the high school.
Yeah, their last. Yeah.
I have to look that one up.
Yeah, or Chippy Waffles, as some of them call it.
Waffles.
They.
Home of Light and Cool's Brewery.
Yes.
Speaking of another good beer.
Yes, exactly. I know that they always talk about part of the reason why they hate Minnesota is because Minnesota calls themselves the land of 10,000 lakes. Well, there's more lakes in Wisconsin, according to the Wisconsinites at least. I'm not gonna. It is probably true, but
it's kind of like Nebraskans and
Iowans fighting over who produces more corn.
Yeah. Who cares? Let's be honest. I think it's going to be interesting because Minnesota has been bad for so long. Wisconsin, basically since Barry Alvarez got there, has been a big bad foe in the Big Ten. Minnesota, once in a while, wins a game against Wisconsin. Now, it looks like Minnesota's putting together a run. PJ Fleck is annoying on so many different levels for a lot of different people. But yet he's a really good coach. He's kind of like the Bill McCartney of the Big Ten. Like, he's picked rivalries, or at least he's got something about his personality that people don't like.
Out there.
Exactly, and he's a good coach.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you will of Nebraska fans about Bill McCartney. PJ Fleck, he was a good coach. He won a national championship. I don't care who you are, and he got Colorado to a different level.
He's the agitator, right?
Yeah.
You've got Sean Avery of
NHL. That player that made it a living off of chirping guys on the other team and getting under their skin. Good hockey player, but kind of came with a lot of the extracurriculars, and you heard people say all the time, if he's on my team, I love him. If he's my coach, I love him. If he's anybody else, it's pretty easy for you to rub him the wrong way. Charles Barkley in the NBA, same way.
Dennis Rodman.
Another perfect example. So PJ Fleck, the eccentric Dennis Rodman, and Sean Avery of college football coaches. I think that's a good analogy. Prediction for this one.
I'm actually going to pick Minnesota. It's at Minnesota, and TCF Bank has been rocking lately when they have big games. They have a lot to play for. They seem to adjust well, and they seem to be able to they've figured out how to scheme or play with better talent.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And just way more multiple on offense. They can score in way different ways, and we've seen the last couple of weeks Wisconsin's secondary has been vulnerable to the pass, and Nelson or what's the quarterback's name?
Tanner Morgan.
Morgan, yes, Tanner Morgan. He's been
Philip Nelson.
Yeah.
You're digging into the archives there a little bit. That's been a couple of years. How many of those have you got?
It's too many already. It's a long drive. I drove 5.5 hours.
So as of recording this, you got into town 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
So you got here, ate dinner, said hi to the in-laws, and immediately got his game face on to record the Simply the West podcast. That's dedication. I'm going with Minnesota as well. The stars have aligned for this team all year. The way their schedule is set up, knock on wood, the way they've stayed relatively healthy. You mentioned the multiplicity. We thought this would be a ground and pound, hit you in the mouth, rushing attack, which it can be at times with that inside zone. That's definitely there. But you look at the plays that the Rashad Batemans, Tyler Johnsons, that Ottman Bell, they've even been getting the tight ends involved a little bit here and there. And remember coming into the year, we said they're just a couple blocking tight ends. They're basically other
PJ Fleck, he's a mastermind.
Fleck's made a lot of people eat crow, and you're looking at two people who fall into that category. Wisconsin, on the other hand, they've been exposed, I think, more and more as the season's gone on. It's almost been an opposite trajectory. Yes, they've won comfortably, and they're a very good team. It's going to be a very tough game. Nebraska was able to do some things against them. That defense, especially, they played so well at the beginning of the year. They've shown some holes, especially in the back end, like you said. So I think Minnesota's going to be able to take advantage of that. Minnesota's not a team that gets punched in the mouth once or twice and doesn't respond. Even in that Iowa loss, they fall behind.
Yeah, they got
They fight
20 to
to get
3
back
at one
in
point.
there,
Yeah.
down 17, and then that was a game in the final seconds. So you respond well. It's at home. College game day is going to be here. It's a fantastic venue. Maybe one of the most underrated college football venues. Definitely in the Big Ten. It's a very nice stadium. What always strikes me about it when I go there is it's very clean. Like, it's very well taken care of.
Is it the newest stadium in the Big Ten right now? It might be.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
So that helps. It's really cool that if you go around the outside, every county in Minnesota has an archway and the brick facade on the outside, and it's going to be a really good scene. This weekend, again, is so awesome. You get Thanksgiving, and then you get all the rivalry games, and this is one of the last days of that, so having college game day here is going to be fun for that. Speaking of Thanksgiving and I guess more holiday-themed Black Friday, you've got the Heroes game between Nebraska and Iowa, also a trophy game. The Iowa has won 4 of the past 5 years, 5 of the past 8, so Hawkeyes have really had the Huskers numbered. That rubs a lot of people down in my hometown, your current place of residence, the wrong way. And man, what it would mean for this program to get over that Iowa hump, to get to a bowl game, to get some extra practices. With as disappointing as this season has been for dear old Nebraska U, you'd really feel good coming out of a victory against a very tough Iowa team.
yeah, and just to think about how good Iowa is, they lost 4 starters to the NFL draft last year. That's what I've been trying to look up. Who was it? I can't remember. We got Noah Fant, T.J. Hawkinson, Josie Jewell, and somebody else. Gosh, who was the safety? Hooker, Amani Hooker. All 4 juniors left early and are playing in the NFL. Imagine how good this Iowa team would be with those 2 tight ends and that defense, those defensive guys. How much better they would be. We might be talking about going 11-0 at this point and going to the Big Ten championship. And,
Scary.
And possibly, I mean, I'm not saying that Nate Stanley is anywhere close to Justin Fields or anything like that, but when you have those weapons at tight end, you can move some of the piles a little bit better, get to the edge a little bit more on your running game, get the ball to more open receivers. Then that would give a run for their money. That's how good this Iowa team's been recruiting at a high level. Yeah. And then to put that with like Smith Marset and all their other wide receivers that they've had, I mean, this is going to be a Herculean task to go for Nebraska. Now, on the flip side, we just haven't seen that one breakout offensive game for Iowa.
No.
And that's what scares me because I'm wondering, is it going to happen to Nebraska?
It has in the past.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yes, exactly. But at the same time, people have run on this Iowa defense. They just haven't let them score touchdowns. They've only allowed 15 touchdowns this entire year. That's an insane statistic. So I'm leaning Iowa because of how strong their defense is, how they've shown that they've had talent, way more talent than Nebraska over the last couple of years. Iowa seems to be in a much better place, but Nebraska does have a lot more motivation because they have to play for a bowl game.
Yeah.
To have
to extend their season.
Exactly.
They have to be feeling confident after shellacking Maryland 54-7. I know it's Maryland, but you've heard me say it on here. They need to just get that taste of blood in their mouth, and I think they got it out in the D.C. area this past weekend, and they kept swimming and finding more fish and put their foot on somebody's throat for once.
Yeah, give them a chance to build a little bit of depth, get some younger guys in there.
Fantastic.
They've been fighting a lot of sickness. There was people that had influenza and it sounds like guys, as Scott Bryce quoted it, things were coming out of both ends. And
his face when he said that during the
he was like, "Oh crap, I shouldn't have said that."
I don't know if I should say this. Oh, I'm just gonna say it. Oh, I shouldn't have said it. We've all been there.
Yeah, so it happens to me more than anybody else.
Every day.
Yeah. I put my foot in the mouth all the time. My wife has said that I have no filter.
Well, that's true. That's why.
Why we do this, man.
That's why we have to record, because a lot of times you have to edit stuff out.
That's right. It's a lot of work behind the scenes to keep things clean. Yeah, I'd give it maybe a 30% chance that Nebraska wins. Gonna be a fun day in Lincoln too, though. Sounds like the weather might be a little dicey. We'll see if that has an impact on the game or not. But this fan base, I think, is pretty excited. They're coming off of a win, with a chance to at least end the season on a good note. Speaking of a good note, Illinois has been hitting all the right notes during the second half of this season. Kind of has the motivation to try and get a better bowl against Northwestern, but it's already been a successful season for Illinois. We said the ceiling for them was getting to a bowl game. They've achieved that against a lot of odds. Again, I think it's going to be a tough game against Northwestern for that Land of Lincoln trophy. How do you see that one playing out between those two squads?
Well, Northwestern's just so banged up, although I did see some good stuff from them this past weekend. I was watching a little bit of their game, and they had a quarterback that was running almost a single wing. Wouldn't let their quarterback run too much, but he was throw too much, but he was running the ball really well. Power behind a different line.
Why not try something completely off the wall?
They got smashed. They got smashed by Minnesota, though, which just tells you how good Minnesota is. But at the same time,
They put up some points in that game, though.
yeah, exactly. There was just a lot more life in their offense when they basically just said, "Screw it, we're going to just run the ball with our quarterbacks. We're not going to try and do anything," because I think that Aiden Smith is hurt. Hunter Johnson went out. He had to go to the hospital during the game. Yeah, so they're just so beat up. I can still see Illinois is, if there's one thing, they're very physical. They will hit the crap out of you, and that's what they do. So I'm gonna lean Illinois because they seem to have shown a way to win games lately and play hard throughout.
I've heard multiple teams now looking in hindsight say that game that we played against Illinois was the most physical game we played all year. That's remarkable.
That is definitely remarkable considering we thought it was basically like a Maryland win at the time.
And Lovey was fighting for his job at one point.
He just got 3 more years from this, I think.
I don't see how you couldn't. They're a young team too, so they're going to be a force to be reckoned with moving forward. Another kind of up-and-coming team on the other side of the division is Indiana. Played really well against Penn State a couple weeks ago.
Brought them down the wire.
Saw what they did against Nebraska and a couple other teams in this division. Playing Purdue for that famous Old Oaken bucket. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. You've got Braum trying to scheme some things up against somewhat susceptible Indiana.
Is Rondell Moore, is he out for this season, or is he going to be back for this game?
I haven't heard anything about it as of today. They've tried to play it pretty coy, and I'm sure they will. You try to have every advantage you can going into a game. So there's probably some reports out there or something. I mean, that would be a huge boost for them if they're able to get him back. I wonder how many games he played this year.
I know, that's why I was thinking, because he was able to get a redshirt from this.
We'll look into that. But in any case, should be an entertaining kind of back and forth one. And want to at least keep an eye on Saturday before things really get crazy later in the day with Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Yep. I think Indiana's kind of proven that they're starting to become, next year we'll see where if they made the next step, because they'll get Penix back. And because he had season-ending surgery, and he's better than Ramsey, who's playing really well and leading them to victories and keeping them close against the Penn States.
Ramsey's just scrappy, kind of like that whole team.
Yep. I know that they have some good young talent on defense. Tywan Mullen is a good cornerback that was looking at going to Nebraska, and he's really, really good athlete. So they're continually starting to build this stronger. They're going to be they're going to kind of be like a Purdue for the Big Ten East.
Yeah.
Yep. We're going to be trying to be really scrappy, going after those big dogs. And you know what? They've been hanging with them as of late. So we'll see what they can do going forward, though.
Sure.
So let's go a little bit bigger picture now. You've got Minnesota still 8th in the college football playoff rankings. Wisconsin's number 12, probably doesn't have a shot to get in unless a ton of crazy things happen. On the other side, you've got Michigan playing Ohio State, which I know that's the East Division, but you and I were talking about this before we hit record. growing up watching Nebraska, mainly in the Big 12 after the Nebraska-Oklahoma rivalry. This weekend, you had Nebraska playing Colorado a lot. It's the Thanksgiving tradition. I know my family always got together, leftover turkey sandwiches, watched the Buffs and the Huskers, but it was never the same as what our parents grew up with Nebraska-Oklahoma, either playing on Thanksgiving or the day after.
Decided the national championships or any Big Eight championships at the time.
Year after year, we're talking 25 years running, spanning multiple legendary Hall of Fame coaches for both programs. So to me, that's the definition of a rivalry when you talk about rivalry weekend. And Nebraska, for one, really hasn't had that. But I remember Michigan, Ohio State was like appointment viewing, just as a college football fan. And you remember watching that, looking at it, like, I want something like that. Minnesota, Wisconsin, locally, it's on the same scale here. It doesn't mean as much nationally. It's not as relevant nationally, especially because of the way Minnesota's been for decades and decades. But you're going to see some more of that this week. Minnesota, if they're able to win this and somehow upend Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, assuming Ohio State takes care of business, or they locked it up, so they're in. Minnesota's a playoff team.
If they beat Ohio State, there's no way they can let that
That's
happen.
remarkable.
They will
There's a possibility of that. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
Well, they will have beaten Penn State, who was a top 10 team at the time. They would have beaten they'll beat Wisconsin, who's number 12 right now, and then if they beat Ohio State, number 1, number 2 team, and then land or whatever.
Their only loss is against a ranked team on the road. That's not a bad loss.
Against and a ranked team that is better than. I mean, they should be better than what the record is at this point. I mean, you look at Iowa's losses. I mean, just to kind of go back to the Iowa, they lost to Penn State by, 3 points, 4 points? It was like 16-12. Ohio's
10-3 against Michigan.
10-3 against Michigan, and then by one or 2 points to Wisconsin.
It was like 23-20, I think.
Yeah, 23-20.
Yeah.
So
One possession game.
One possession games.
They've been right there. They wanted that signature win all year. That's why I think they're going to be motivated in Lincoln to go in and beat
the tar off of them.
Who they consider a rival. It's really interesting. Do you consider Nebraska-Iowa a rivalry?
You know, it's funny is because now that, like, living in Omaha, I think it has become a rivalry in Omaha because there's so many more Iowa fans because we're right there on the border. And it's just so funny because somebody helped explain it to me. I was like, why do I just dislike Iowa so much as a Nebraska fan? Because they don't – I see it on message boards. They don't care about winning Big Ten championships or national championships. At least that's they're happy with these 9-3, 10-4, 10-2 seasons. Whereas Nebraska, they fired coaches for this because they're not okay with just getting to 9-3, 10-2. They want national championships. They want Big Ten championships. They want to get to that level, and it could be, and that's probably also why Iowa is driven nuts by Nebraska because they're basically saying, know your place, son. You don't know anything. There's no way Nebraska is ever going to get back to those glory days. You're living in the 90s and the 80s and 70s. There's no way Nebraska can get back. And we're saying, well, at least we're trying to get back.
Well, and at least we've been there.
And we've been there.
I don't know how many funny empty trophy case memes I've seen on social media.
Yeah, how many Big Ten championships, how many national championships?
Because that's not what they care about. The sky's blue, you're breathing oxygen, and Iowa won 8 games this year. That's just kind of the way it goes.
Yeah, exactly. You might have some fun games in there, and then some games where you're like, how did we lose this game? And I think that's probably why it's it's turning more into a rivalry because, to begin, Pelini had a 3-1 record against Iowa to begin the Big Ten year.
Pissed off some Iowa fans.
Yeah, exactly. And then he gets fired amid comments by Eichhorst, who says, I had to evaluate where and then they've won 5 out of the last 6.
Yeah,
so now that they have a 6-3 record against Iowa, you're seeing more of these Nebraska fans saying, well, I'd like to beat Iowa and Wisconsin every year because those two teams really make me mad because they think they're better than us.
So you just made a great case for something that Scott Frost said, which is basically rivalries are for the fans. And while there's definitely vitriol between fan bases, to me, just this is my personal opinion, that doesn't constitute necessarily a rivalry. That's two fan bases that don't like each other. If you look up rivalry in the dictionary, it literally says something along the lines of two adversaries competing for the same goal. And to me, at least, the best rivalries in sports have that over time and time and time. Ohio, Michigan, the relevance of that game, the tradition of that match.
Decided Big Ten
Decided Big Ten championships. Even something as what might seem trivial as an axe, but when you know the culture between Minnesota and Wisconsin, they've been playing for that trophy year after year after year after year. You know what that means, not just to the fans, but to the program and to each state. They get into it. Nebraska, Oklahoma was that. Obviously, you have rivalries down south like Alabama, Auburn. Same sort of thing. Anything involving Nebraska can't be a rivalry yet because Nebraska hasn't been in the Big Ten long enough for that to really be the case in terms of consistently competing for the same goal. I think you get there against Iowa. It's going to be really, really weird playing Minnesota that final weekend of the season the next 2 years before it goes back to Iowa. We've already been talking about how do we rework the Thanksgiving Christmas trade-off between seeing my wife's family and our family to make sure we're around for those games and trying to figure out. It's just bizarre.
Go to the game or not.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but this might be my favorite weekend of college football besides the opening weekend when it's Labor Day and you get to wear your shorts and grill out and drink beer. We won't be doing that. It's snowing outside right now.
We'll have some shots or something like that.
But yeah, we'll make it work. What's your favorite thing on the Thanksgiving menu? You'll be here with the Schmitz family.
We're going to be going down to the southern Minnesota.
Okay.
Yep. So we're going to be going down there because
tropical southern.
Yeah,
that's closer to the equator than Maple Grove.
Yeah, we have to. There's so many people that show up, about 150 people, that we have to rent out a whole, like a town center area.
Big Catholic family.
Yes, exactly. So, I really like the green bean casserole.
Solid.
Yeah, with
little onion strings.
Yes, exactly, with the fried onion strings on there, and that's kind of my go-to. And of course, ham. I stay away from turkey. I know it's a sacrilege, but I'm not a big turkey fan. I've just had too many bad turkeys. Although I will do smoked turkey. Smoked turkey is really good, but I stay away from turkey for the most part.
Yeah.
So we're hosting at my house. My parents are coming up from Nebraska, and then my wife's family will be over as well. So as long as I don't burn the bird, it'll be a successful day. I really like Thanksgiving. There's not a dish on the menu that I really look forward to, like, oh man, I have to have that. I like turkey. My mom makes some really good cheesy potatoes, so that's probably the biggest highlights. We are going to double duty. We're going to brine and cook a traditional turkey in the oven. And then I got some Genio turkey legs that I'm going to throw on the propane grill outside at the same time. So I'm looking forward to those, like some Renaissance fair style drumsticks, just getting after it. I've always been a fan, like a couple of years in my family, I don't think for Thanksgiving, but like on Christmas has done prime rib. I'd be fine doing steaks or prime rib or something on Thanksgiving, but I know, Christopher Columbus and Squanto didn't have a couple Omaha steaks traditionally. It was turkey, I guess, or something like that.
I don't
in that class.
I don't believe any of that crap. It's just a fairy tale.
Yeah. The guys who win the war write the history books, right?
Exactly.
So, plenty of fun battles this weekend. Let's just run down the schedule here really, really quick. It starts Friday at 1:30 p.m. Central Time on Big Ten Network. Iowa at Nebraska. Iowa number 17 in the college football playoff poll that came out this week. And number 3 in our Big Ten West Power Rankings. Those have not moved in a couple weeks for those of you keeping track. Then you got Northwestern Illinois kicking things off at 11 a.m. on FS1 Saturday. Northwestern 7th in our power rankings in Illinois. Solid 4 after climbing the ranks with the second half of its season. Then, also at 11, Indiana and Purdue, the old Oaken Bucket game on ESPN2. And Purdue is 5th in our power rankings. And then the big battle for the axe and to get to Indianapolis is at 2:30 p.m. on ABC. Wisconsin's a 3-point favorite in that game. I I think that's fair. They might have a little more clout, but I'm with you. I think the Gophers are going to pull that one off. We are going to come at you live on social media a couple times over the next couple of days, so be sure to watch out for that. We're in the same town for once. Who knows when it'll happen again, so going to try to take full advantage. Appreciate you listening all season. This is really a fun culmination of things before we get into conference championship and bowl season. Any parting thoughts, Mr. Molly?
Happy Thanksgiving. Everybody drive safe and listen to the podcast on the way.
Happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you guys soon.